Did my regular rewatch in the morning. Wanted to kind of see if I forgot anything or maybe I missed something in the middle of that game. Obviously, in real time, it's kind of hard to grasp everything that's happening at once. So after watching it again, I decided to just make a video, look at the big picture of this entire thing, because the game ends and I have about 5 or 6 people that are still up at that time, and they're just ready and firing, sending me texts telling me the Celtics are horrible, they're disappointing, Pacers in 6. Some people saying that they're pathetic, or at least one person said that. This was mainly an attack on the Celtics because of how they almost fumbled the game. And a lot of people are just ready to attack the Celtics at any moment when it looks like they're about to fumble. Now, I will say this. Somewhere along the way, people are forgetting who the Celtics are playing, because it just feels like they're just quick to jump and criticize, for better or worse. Like, I understand that they almost fumbled in a pretty bad way, especially, first home game of the series. And we know all of the criticism that's happened already with this team. They've had an easy path to the conference finals. Same can be said about the Pacers. But the detail in this matchup specifically is something that I feel like people are just disregarding so quickly. The Pacers are the second most efficient offense in NBA history, behind only the Celtics. So somewhere along those lines, people just choose to ignore that, and they just want the Celtics to just demolish this team, because obviously they're also the better team in general, and also the Celtics have an elite defense. Now, the Pacers are a team that matches up really well against the Celtics, and there's some pretty obvious reasons why that I guess I'm going to have to explain. The Celtics are a team that loves isolation. They love shooting a bunch of threes. They slow things down. They don't really spread the wealth necessarily. They get into a lot of one-on-one stuff. They love the mismatch hunting. And then on the other end, you have the Pacers, who they're number 1 in assists, number 1 in assist to turnover ratio. They play extremely fast. They're the second highest paced team in the NBA. So if any team is going to give them a good fight, in the Eastern Conference at least, it's the Pacers. And I don't know why people think the Celtics should just be destroying this matchup, or that the Celtics are horrible for not convincingly or not beating them in a convincing way. They also don't have Kristaps Porzingis, which people are going to try to convince you that that's not that big of a deal somehow. I don't know how that's even logical. Why? Because they have Drew, because they have Tatum, Brown. They're going to give you all these names, Derek White. Yes, these are good names, but Kristaps Porzingis is a huge piece of this puzzle. He is a big reason this team is as great as it is, and this team is still really good without him. But when you take Porzingis out, people think, oh, well, this team is still good enough to dominate, and that may be true, but you're also not taking into account what happens schematically, what happens just strategically and mentally in a way, with the chemistry, with the rotations. A lot changes when KP is not out there. For one, you are now thinner at the center position. So now you have to play Horford more. Older Horford, which he still does a really good job, but you have to play him more. He's not as mobile as Porzingis. He's not as athletic as Porzingis. So he's going to be someone that teams in general are just going to put him in a bunch of pick and roll actions and test his mobility, right? They're going to get downhill. If you have a spacey center that Horford is clearly having to worry about in this series, which is Miles Turner, and now all of a sudden Horford is stuck between his drop coverage, having to cover up a bunch of ground to get back out to Miles Turner. So now you're down a rim protector and it's free lanes to the basket. So it's like you have that problem, right? Now you have to play Horford more. Then because you don't have Porzingis and you don't have Horford coming off the bench now you're relying on more Luke Kornet minutes. And the Pacers are going to love the Kornet matchup. Like, they're just going to have a party with that because he's not a mobile big. He's a very traditional type of center. He's a very slow-footed, really tall guy that alters shots, but not the kind of guy that's going to be in an up and down, fast-paced game. He's a drop coverage big as well, so not a lot of versatility in those Luke minutes. So that's another thing that works in the Pacers' favor. So I don't know how people are still arguing that this team should convincingly beat the Pacers without KP. I should also note that the Pacers don't have Ben Mathurin. I didn't want that to escape me. Just to touch more on that Horford point. Because of the lack of mobility with Horford, there's just more drives to the basket, which, by the way, the Pacers are also number 1 in points in the paint. And people are going to probably think, how is that even possible? A lot of people actually know that, but to those people that are surprised to hear that the Pacers are number 1 in points in the paint, when you have 5 guys that can shoot threes, and you have obviously your center, pick and pop, 3-point shooter, you have such a spread out offense that trying to close the gaps on drives is just almost impossible. And you see it time and time again with the Pacers. They do a great job of using that space to not just shoot, but get to the rim. And it's something that I said really early in the season. I think it was along the in-season tournament that they could learn from the Pacers in that sense. Use your space to get to the basket. Don't use your space to play one-on-one. You can play one-on-one with all that space, and it's not bad to do it in bursts, you know, especially when things are kind of looking rough. But the Celtics opt to do this so often that it kills them. Obviously, looking at it holistically, the Pacers should have just won this game. Like, they basically handed this game to the Celtics multiple times. And it's funny because people will tell you, oh, well, you know, Boston's elite on defense. They should be stopping the Pacers. Really? Stopping the second most efficient offense in NBA history? It's that easy of a job? Stop it. That's just like that. Like, that is so ridiculous to me. There's a reason that the Pacers have been so good despite being so bad on defense all year long. That's how great their offense is. It makes up tremendously for how bad their defense is. And they've actually defended really well in moments in these playoffs. And I think they also defended the Celtics really well. Now, part of that could just be the Celtics slowing things down and trying to get some one-on-one, you know, because they're really mismatch hunting. There's points in the game where they're running double screens for Tatum just to get the matchups they want so that he can go one-on-one. They'll do the same thing for Drew Holiday. They do the same thing for Derek White at times, Jaylen Brown. And when those baskets don't go in, the Pacers are often running, and it's 4-on-5, or you're backing up, right? You're on your heels, and then all of a sudden they're shooting up these threes in transition. And if those start to fall, now you find yourself in a game exactly like this one, where it's back and forth. Maybe the Celtics go cold for a little bit. The Pacers catch some fire. The Celtics start to panic. Then they get into some worse offense, some bad habits that we've seen all year long. And the Pacers are just going to play the same way all game long. They're going to play fast. They're going to spread it out. They're going to move the ball. They're not going to stick around and isolate. They're just going to look for the best option as often as possible. Whereas the Celtics are just going to try to put the ball in one guy's hands for the most part, and then try to abuse a matchup. And clearly, that almost backfired on them. The Celtics should win this series. In no way do I think the Pacers are going to win this one. Now, that doesn't mean that I think it's going to be a cakewalk through this series. Like, there's a lot of people that just believe it's like Celtics in 5 or a sweep. And I do believe the Pacers are going to get 2 games in this series. And honestly, that might have been one of the ones that it should have been. But there's still plenty of basketball left. This is one game at home for Boston, and they did what they were supposed to do. They won this game at home. The Pacers fumbled it. It was horrible to watch, but I want to see what they have in them for a second road game, because I just predict that the Celtics are going to be more locked in after almost losing that game 1. And maybe they win in a more convincing way. And then I can already see people messaging me, telling me, hey, look, see, this is what's supposed to happen. You know, the Celtics are winning this game convincingly like they should have in game 1. And, you know, like, I think that is going to have more to do with their will after losing such a crucial game 1 that they could have won. We're going to see what they're made of, how they respond after a loss like that. We're also going to get, obviously, Timberwolves Mavs tonight, so definitely hyped to see that one. And I'm going to try to put out a video for that game as well.